Hey there, welcome back to Arms Trade Tycoon. Welcome back to the tank business for episode 8. What I have been up to so far is making quite a bit of money. I'm up to 33 million, and the contracts just keep rolling in. I have enabled the contract modifier, the legal one, that allows me to supply 15 additional tanks, and there's lots of money to be made. So business is good, although I'm having a little bit of trouble keeping up with the demand. As you can see here, we have Bulgaria, which is, Bulgaria, which is requiring loads and loads and loads of tanks. They want the economical infantry tanks, so I sold them the links, and they seem to like it, so they're paying quite a lot for it. Their desired price is 48k. I offered them the price at 67k, and they said, yeah, sure, fine. I'm going to give them 105 tanks, and that's a total contract of $7 million. Unfortunately, my production cap is a little lacking. So we're going to have to quickly crank out more of these beautiful tanks. We are still requesting 121 tanks. The timeline required is about 104 days. So I'll probably not really be able to keep up with that. I guess they might have to wait a little longer. In the meanwhile, I'm cranking out additional T-34s as requested by the British. The British keep requesting more and more and more tanks. So by now, their tank battalion should have filled out nicely. In the design department, I have decided to make a slight adjustment to one of the tanks because I wanted to see how it would perform. And that is... oh, let me amend these. Where are you? Here. This is the Lynx, as you might know it, the Panzer Kampfwagen 4. And I have decided to change it into a howitzer. You've already seen that in the previous episode, but now we also have this cute little thing. It's almost like it stole the turret off of an AMX. And surprisingly, it actually has a pretty decent stat compared to what is required. One of the things that this Lynx didn't really do well, I think with the big turret, is crew performance. It had a crew performance of 149, which was too low, and that sometimes upset the client. Now, they actually have a much higher stat. Also, their primary weapon is much better at 246. I gave them more different types of shells with kinetic firepower in mind. And mobility is good enough. It looks a little out of place, but it does what it needs to do. So this one is something that I do have planned for selling to additional clients. However, we also have access now to another tank. And that is going to be the focal point of this video. The Comet. And depending on how well I can do with the Comet, I can probably turn this thing into a pretty mobile, maybe an infantry tank or an economical infantry tank. I'm not sure if this will have enough protection. Wow, it already has enough protection on the hull. Of course, we don't have a turret, so it doesn't have enough protection on the turret. That makes sense. What else they need? Well, they need repairability. They want this thing to be able to get fixed up in the field. It is a cruiser and infantry tank. It's been shown to be highly effective, yet there's a clear problem in lack of availability for our units. Okay, we got 5 clients. The British, the Italians, the Bulgarians, the Spanish, and the Dutch. If I set it up as a standard infantry tank, you're going to see the same requirements. If I set it up as the polyvalent tank, you're looking at some slightly different stats. If I set it up as a multi-purpose, I think it is going to fall short. Because at mobility, yeah, well, mobility is difficult to compare to right now because I don't have an engine. Let's say I throw in the Bedford. You're not quite going to get there, I think. Oh, Minotaur tracks are exactly the wrong thing for this type of vehicle. I don't think this is quite going to work. So let's say that it's going to be the economical infantry tank, because we're already getting quite decent in that area. They do, however, need 290, so once I throw on a turret, I think we'll see some fairly decent results. Let's do that right now. I have quite a large assortment of turrets available. I have the medium universal. This is the M3 tank, or rather the M3 turret. And once you put that on, you can see that the stats for the turret jump. They really like the frontal thickness. They don't quite like the frontal ricochet yet, interestingly. I think that the rest of the turrets are okay for frontal thickness, but you're going to fall short again on frontal ricochet, which is fine, because I make up for that in just the additional frontal thickness. I mean, 152 is what this thing has. It's an absolute tank of a unit, no pun intended. It might be a little out of place, but who cares. Alternatively, we can go with this one, which isn't as good, and I think it just kind of descends into madness from there on. You're looking at a 214 here. The turret itself weighs 2.5, which is slightly higher than here. The only thing I don't really like about this this large turret, the large universal, is how many crew members it takes. Because this one takes 5 crew members. And, well, thankfully they don't really care about the amount of crew members required. So in that case, I might be able to make it work. What else can we put on? We can put the German turret on. But the German turret, I think, doesn't have enough armor. It doesn't have enough frontal thickness unless you adjust it. The T-34 turret is better in ricochet, but worse in frontal thickness. And if I go down and add the universal, you're going to see that the frontal thickness is just awful. The frontal ricochet is fine, but kinetic resistance is again a problem. You can still kind of fix this, but you're never going to get up to 64, not with that turret. Alternatively, you can just put an armored seal in place and, I don't know, use it as a battle taxi. But that's not a thing in this game. So I think I think this turret might work. I'm not sure yet. Let's see. For the tracks, it's going to be a pretty hefty beast. Also, the engine. I have the Bedford V12. And is that going to be enough? They don't really care about mobility that much. They just care about repairability. And that is something that I think falls in line with the engine. The more complex your engine is going to be, the worse its repairability is going to be. And especially the power unit is going to be important. The running gear is also very important. So those factors are going to be decisive for whether or not this is going to pass the client's requirements. 43, we're just going downhill from here. 34, yeah, leave it up to the Germans to make an engine that's utterly irreparable. And over here we're looking at a pretty poor stat. 41. I'm thinking that this Bedford is not actually a wrong fit. It's just a bit heavy at 3,300 kilograms. Maybe I can make that thing slightly more feasible for this tank by ideally improving its repairability. Let's see what I can fix. Because once that repairability goes up, maybe we can get the ideal tank for them. Now, what goes into repairability? Over here we have the power unit, and this is the reliability, not to be confused with. Some of these parts are reliability, some of them are repairability. They care about repairability. The engine's already superseding expectations. So, given that, I can still change some of these stats. I think, however, as this is a new engine, there isn't that much that I need to change. They probably already used the best parts, the tier 4s. So there isn't that much that I need to switch up in the first place. As for their general mobility, on paper, this thing is going to have pretty good road speed and cross-country speed. Agility is also very good, so it's going to be able to shift very nicely. Now, is there any other part that I can fix up? This is repairability. You can see we got 12 here, we got 11, and it just kind of... it hovers out around 12. With the wide contact flywheel, and we have the heavy flywheel. The heavy flywheel is actually lighter than the wide contact. It takes up the same amount of space. It has slightly worse obstacle step height. It has slightly worse obstacle trench width. But that's fine. The high flow carburetor. This is a repairability. The other one is slightly better. The large intake carburetor. So we're going to go to 58. But what does that do to the rest of my stats? Because I'm getting a general stat of no change. It's just going to boost cross-country speed here. At the expense of some road speed. I think that's fine. And then high torque. This is not really going to do much, but this is repairability. Some of these have repairability bonuses, some of them do not. Right now I'm using this 13. I can switch to the crash gearbox for 17 at the expense of cross-country speed. By a very, very slight margin. I'm looking at a 62. If I'm going for that reinforced thing, you're getting no bonuses, but you do need one mechanic less. It's going to make the whole thing a lot worse. Yeah, this just means you don't have enough, or you don't need as many mechanics. We got a 58 there, and we got a 62 there, so you're it. Save that, get the engineering team to work on that, and we're going back to design. Okay, the tracks come next. Because this is already a tank that's looking to be 21 tons with turret. Let's first throw in a gun so I know how much more weight I need to work on. They want quite a lot of kinetic pen. Rate of fire is also important to them. I'm not sure if that German turret can provide that. This 25 pounder potentially can, and you can make a lot of damage happen with this thing. I know that I changed this to a high rate of fire version as well. See, over here, yeah, this is actually not great. I cannot really do much with rate of fire in the form of expendables, but I can change that for kinetic pen, because you can just get better shells on it. So what I really need is a high rate of fire, which is not something you'll find with the German gun. The American gun has a 22. The French... That's the French gun, right? It's a 24. That's a 35. That's better. Over here, we're getting 35, 36, 22, 22. No, I would not like to change something. Accuracy, however, is awful on this gun. It is awful. So I think what I need to do is just look for the highest value for firepower. And then adjust that as much upward possible using expendables. So we got a 90, we got a 91, we got a 104, 105, and nope, I don't want to change anything. 93. Okay, you are getting a howitzer. That's a fairly hefty gun, I think. Weight 521. No, actually the German gun's heavier. I don't think I've unlocked any additional parts, so it doesn't really matter there. Oh, I do need to change that to that second weapon. Here's the 105. Good. Machine gun. This is the machine gun port in the front of the tank. I would ideally just have a coaxial, making it far more valuable. And I can just seal that one up. Because that does require an additional gunner. And with that engine, I might need a lot of people just fixing up the tank. Oh, so far it's fine, but I haven't added running gear yet. Okay, what else do they want? This is more than good enough, so I can just close that for a minute. They want repairability, so I need a high repairability track. The Minotaur track works, but its repairability is not great. The running gear only has a 28 repairability. Structure is awful. Hold on, that goes for the turret? Oh, okay. We got an overloaded mechanic. Well, that's probably because we don't have a mechanic yet at all. These British tracks, they can carry a lot of weight. They're just really bad when it comes to using mechanics. These guys are a little better. No, not really. That's the Erkling V2 at 77. Are we going to throw T-34 tracks on? We're going to throw T-34 tracks on. Why not? It's already becoming a bit of a freak of a tank. But that's fine. Regarding weight, we're looking at a nice power to weight ratio. Very nice. This thing is allowed to weigh up to 28 tons. Oh, sorry, 20? Oh. My tank is a little heavier than that. Oops. Hold on. What is so heavy about this vehicle right now? It's the turret, it's the tracks, and it's the engine. And the Comet itself isn't particularly light either. Maybe I'm just comparing this to the wrong stat. If I say it's going to be an infantry tank, does that change the deal? Yeah, it can go up to 24. The thing is, I already have an infantry tank, and that's the Matilda. The heavy Matilda. So I don't really need to engineer this thing for the infantry tank role. Can I have it be a stopgap? Protection is good enough. Firepower, yeah, we can make that work, I think. Although, no, we need rate of fire. If I add crew, we can get some rate of fire bonuses, of course. But the commander's already overloaded, and the driver is bored. Nah, I don't think it's going to work in this role. Alternatively... Well, no, we don't have any alternatives. Okay, fine. Can I turn you into a multipurpose? Not with that mobility, I can't. But that's without a driver. Does the driver change the stats? They do, quite a bit. We're not going to get up to what they need, but at least the mass isn't as bad. And the firepower can still be changed with the expendables, because I can just add this, and now we are at limit. Crew performance, however, is a problem. If I add commander, the commander's too busy. That's not good. We're going to have a gunner. See, you need 2 mechanics in order to keep those leshy tracks going, and therein lies the problem. Because that's going to be a very, very crowded tank. Now I have all the stats, but crew performance is awful. The kinetic pen is off the charts. See, for this thing, I think it would be okay. Protection is way better than what they need. Firepower hard is way better than what they need. And that's only with one type of shell. If I can also give them APCRs... And which one was the other one? I think it was enhanced effect shells. You're looking at an enormous amount of heavy firepower. Your repairability, however, is still pretty bad for running gear and for the structure. But the structure only loses 2 points and this only loses 3 points, which is more than offset by everything else. I think we can make this work, but ideally I would research some additional parts and make sure that they're actually a bit more in line with the type of tank that I'm trying to engineer. So I might need to be patient or just engineer this as is and then later come up with a different version of this tank. This is going to be the Vomit Comet because it is not a great tank. Stats, mobility. It's going to supposedly have pretty good road speed and halfway decent cross-country speed. Okay. We first need to engineer the power unit and potentially change the tracks on her. If I go for the other leshy tracks, they're going to change much? Meh. You're getting slightly better... What? How do the tracks change the power unit's reliability? Oh, excessive wear. Minus 10? I don't get it. The leprechauns? Yeah, right. Well, that doesn't really fit, though, does it? I don't think this thing's going to be particularly great at climbing obstacles. Can we get something higher than 150? Not really. The Urklings, you're also getting 150. Sorry, 140. Still, though, I'm worried about that weight. The maximum accepted weight is 20. And mine's 29. We are putting a lot of faith into this tank as is. But then again, I'm using a Comet for a hull. I'm using T-34 tracks. I'm using an engine that's probably not designed to be in this particular tank, and I'm using a turret from a Churchill with a howitzer in it. So not your typical Comet. Then again, that's never stopped me before. Okay, yeah, I think I'm just gonna keep this thing as is. Save. Let's see how that thing will drive, eventually. Test drive, the Vomit Comet. That turret is... That turret always surprises me in how snappy it is. It just seems to overcorrect every now and then. The whole platform feels rather mobile. Those T-34 tracks are definitely doing work. I feel they're very exposed without their, well, usual protective part of the armor protecting them. As for that howitzer, we're getting a really respectable reload on that. I think, what was it, one gunner doing that? And one loader supplying the shells? So, those guys really must be some level of bodybuilders, otherwise you probably can't get away with this. Yeah, I think it's a... it's a curious little thing. Does this do what they want it to do? And also, one thing I didn't quite check is how much time I need to build this thing. Hello? Can we get the gun up? Okay, I guess we did. Does it have any kind of elevation, this gun? Yeah, it does have a little bit. Gun depression is good enough. I can very quickly get this machine gun on target. Apparently there was a tank down there. Especially the agility is really good. This thing just snaps around whenever you need it. Very nice. With the armor protection values, I think it should be fine for contracts. Because especially if you make up for one of the stats that you're not as good at, such as the weight of the tank, with potentially enhanced firepower, potentially enhanced armor. Repairability is not a very strong point of this thing, but good enough. Maybe they want to buy it. Let's have a look. Let's see, the economical infantry tank, as requested. Is this something you seek? They quite like it. 1,500 points. However, it is 26,000 man-hours. It's not as bad as the Heavy Churchill, which they despise. Looking at that weight, they're not terribly happy about it. Thankfully, it is fixed by the fact that this thing has so much more heavy firepower than they require, that the 1,200 deficit is offset by the 2,200 surplus that I have here. Can I fix this thing with another tank? Because I don't like that 26,000 man-hour time. See, the M3 dual carrier, or the dual gun carrier can also do it, but that's 29 ton, or 29,000 hours. Yeah, see? However, if I push this, you're looking at an okay score, 333. This is going to get progressively worse. The 234 gets a 737 with 20,000 man-hours. Total production time is 20.69. This thing is probably going to be a bit more expensive. 29. It's 50% more expensive. And your stats, your success score, aren't even that much better. So where does the T-34 shine? Weight is a little bit more in line. Firepower hard is okay. The protection is extreme. I bet I can push this tank higher. And I might need to do that. I don't think I need to change much about the T-34 V1. This thing has gotten a lot of fame, as I've sold loads of these things by now. I don't think if they've ever been into conflict, though, because their design fame and military fame doesn't do anything. Curiously. Why is your fame -2? Oh. I guess the V3 has actually seen some combat. And they didn't quite do well. Okay. So let's quickly design a slightly different version of the T-34. Because I can copy almost everything, except expendables. Yeah, they're still using old expendables. Therein lies the problem. Okay, so give me a copy of this whole tank. That is this one. Just copy everything on it. And we're going to say this is the T-34 V4, I think. Do I still need all that crew? Yes, I do. Expendables, we are looking for not strictly a stopgap. I think we're looking for an economical infantry tank, for which it does do very well, except firepower hard. That's where we can definitely improve. The type of shells that we're using now are giving a stat of 163. I'm going to kick all that out. I'm going to say, you want kinetic firepower? Here's your kinetic firepower. You want more kinetic firepower? I can get you some more. And some more. And now we're looking at 211. Easy. They don't really care about the amount of firepower from the secondaries. So machine guns are okay. I can still potentially improve that a little bit. But as they don't seem to prioritize it, I don't think it's going to really make that much of a difference. Let's see. These guys are going to give a pretty high shock value. Sometimes they want range. I think tungsten with their 8 range bonus is the best I can offer them. So let's get the tungsten core. I'm currently using stabilized fuel. That's a 3-1. I'm going to go to a 3-2. And I'm going to say you're going to get synthetic oil for higher repairability and a better power unit. Save that. Assign that 1 day. Easy. Done. Alright, let's go back to the contract center. So that was the economical infantry tank. I was offering them the T-34 V1. 1570, and this is 1968 by simply swapping out some expendables. The price of the tank is exactly the same, and that is with 7 defects. Okay, so 1968 with 7 defects. If I just fix everything, we can probably get that 1968 to a little over 2k. Oh yeah. Push the amount of tanks, push the amount of time, and you get a contract for 4.5 million, which is due in 136 days. Send it. Nice. Unfortunately, this thing is just very expensive in man-hours and price. I think it has to do with the increased man-hours and the increased requirements. We're looking at 2,776. And this thing only requires 1,821. The T-34 is a very simple tank. But it does what it needs to do. And that's just good enough. It's just good enough. Wait a second. You got an armored... You could have a machine gun there? Why the hell do I have a machine gun in the hull? Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Kick that out. Seal this up. No. Not that. Cancel. No, I do not want to change that. That machine gun needs to get sealed up. So, let's say this is version 4.1. Because this Vickers needs to go, and this armored seal here needs to hold an MG34. There. Is that going to do anything to change? It's going to add like 21. Add a slight. But we're looking at attribute sum, which has definitely improved from 3109 to 3150. Because that machine gun is now a heck of a lot more flexible. Okay, get that done. The selected crew, the expendables, everything else can stay the same. The frontal thickness of the hull is a bit of a problem. And you're looking at an engine which isn't quite up to snuff. But it's good enough. And this tank, with all of its massive bonuses in these fire departments, I think will definitely sell. Alright, so the Vomit Comet unfortunately didn't quite work out. The next episode is probably going to be about one of the other vehicles that I still haven't really built. I still have the Heavy Churchill Mark II, but I find that a bit too similar to the Heavy Churchill Mark I. So I'm going to start looking into the cruiser hull, the Heavy Cromwell. This is potentially a bit more mobile, looking at mobility of 221 and 474 protection. Over here, we're looking at 573 protection and mobility of 244 versus... Oh, 221? Interesting. So, the Comet's actually supposed to be the more mobile with higher protection. Huh. It outperforms most others and has incredible potential on the field. Yeah, I'll give you that. Okay, let's go look into the cruiser hull. Something else that I now have done, and I'll make that the final bit of this episode, is the decrementally hardened steel. This is important, because something I have run into as an issue time and time again is that the stopgap medium tank, the M3 Lee that I'm constantly trying to push onto my clients, does not have what they want. And the issue is always protection. And most notably, it is the lack, I think, of kinetic resistance on the turret in this case, and the kinetic resistance on the tank. So what I can do is change the M3 Lee, because now I have that composite stuff, I think. So let me change. Yeah, let's push the V3. Because now I should be able to use that alloy. There you are. And all of a sudden, you're looking at a lot more kinetic resistance. Which is exactly what they need. Kinetic resistance, set. And I can do the same thing for the turret. The rest of these things, it's a tier 3 1. Let's go to a tier 3 2. Unless that doesn't change kinetics. This pushes kinetics to 9. Yeah, we're going to keep on focusing on kinetics. Over here it doesn't really change much, so I don't need to work on that. Kinetic resistance. Save that and go back to design. The rest of the M3 doesn't need to change that much, but the turret does. Because the turret was another part where they were not happy about the protection values. I just hope that the whole thing isn't completely outdated by the time that I get everything engineered. Which is definitely possible. Let's completely clone this one. It's a 1083. Edit that. And I can now put that alloy on there. And all of a sudden the kinetic resistance goes wild. 134. There we go. So that is the kinetic resistance. The rest of it, I don't think needs to change. Because this one also had the better kinetic and shock resistance. These are fine. I think the rest of them didn't really matter that much. Crew aiming is something that I'm not sure they care about. Firepower soft, firepower hard. I can definitely modify firepower hard, it's fine. Okay, get to work on that. Go back to design. And we also need to start working on that, that hull. So edit that in engineering. Assign that to the engineers. 4 days only. Nice. I am worried about the amount of man hours that this thing is going to take. Let's see, I can throw that better engine in there. That's a hefty engine. Okay. What sort of weight do they require? Oh, 30 tons. Okay. I can probably do that. They don't really care about repairability of the whole thing. Just make sure it works. I can throw Erkling tracks under it, which would work and still give me, at present, a decent power-to-weight ratio. But that's not entirely fair. Let's get that modern turret on there. Oh, actually, I can clone this one as well. And also give that the added protection. More kinetic resistance, please. More kinetic resistance. So here goes the kinetic resistance. And the crowd goes absolutely uninterested because it doesn't change protection. Lovely. Let's change that to this so I can get more kinetic resistance. So that's going to be, again, kinetic resistance. Save. 62 days for that tiny thing? Okay, fine. Be like that. Moving on. Add a gun. This is where I'm going to have to look into what they need. They need about rate of fire and accuracy. Ah, yes. I think this is the better weapon. 113 and everything else just becomes worse, as we saw with the other one. No. Yeah, we're gonna give them that howitzer. That one. 65. 65. Then, machine gun. You're gonna get this one. Oh, sorry, that's not really a machine gun, is it? These two combined are definitely going to get up to the rate of fire that they want. The accuracy, maybe with a gunner. I don't understand why I cannot have a gun here. There. I just didn't have the right setup. It's not a great machine gun, that, is it? 1938 modern. I'll give you a more modern machine gun. Unfortunately, the engineers are going to be busy engineering everything else, so that's not going to go anytime soon. Can we add tier 3 parts? No. No, we cannot. It's already using the tier 3 or 4 for everything else. Okay, fine. I don't really need to change that. We can just stick to the basics. So, this thing, just use what we have. That one. Expendables. And I don't mean the crew. No, we're first going to look into that type of shell. I'm carrying 48, they want 27, that's fine. ROF is important, but that's not really something I can impact. But I can impact kinetic. Unfortunately, that doesn't do much. Okay. However, sometimes other clients want additional kinetics. Where is the other high? Oh, this thing only carries 2 slots. Okay, fine. Let's get... Oh, it's a tier 2 machine gun. It cannot handle tier 3 ammo. That's unfortunate. Fine. This and this, and now the crew. We are going to need a commander. Full-time commander. We're going to need a driver who can double as something else. You're going to need a full-time mechanic. You're going to need a mechanic. No, you're going to need a full-time gunner as well. It's because I have many machine guns on me. I can add another mechanic. I don't really know if that's required. Here, rate of fire, 110 rounds a minute between those two guns. Accuracy isn't as good, but I'm more than good enough there. Protection is now 475. Weight is slightly too high, but that'll work. Oh, they do care about the machine gun. My bad, they need shock pen and they need range. Hold on. Shock pen is 5, but I have something higher over here. And the range... Let's see, currently I'm using these. Yeah, I cannot have duplicates, you're right. Better range, better range, better range. Tungsten at the expense of shock. There aren't that many rounds that have a high shock value. All-purpose incendiary. That'll have to do it. Alright, let's save that. Construction time. 32,000 man-hours. Jesus Christ. Takes forever, this thing. That's with the Urkling tracks. The Urklings are 5760. If I give them the leprechauns, which I think they came with, you're not really getting a whole lot from that. You are saving one person. So I guess you could push the amount of engineers or mechanics down a little bit. Can it carry everything? It can. Crew performance slightly improves. It's just that I'm not really pushing my man hours down. That's something I would like, because the man hours for this tank are very high. It's going to be difficult to fix. Oh, also I'm using way too much volume. That's a problem. I cannot build this thing. How am I going to fix that? What's taking up most space? The crew. Yeah, but it's not that easy as just kicking out more crew. Because if I say I don't want to have another loader or another gunner, you're probably going to see a very bad stat for the ROF. No, the ROF doesn't change as much. But we still need to trim off 1.3. I think it might be the engine. The power unit takes up 6.33. It's a big chunky engine. If I change that to this... Oh, it also will shave off some of that. Okay. Yes, that's better. Let's at least make a copy out of it. And get a more modern version of that engine. And here I thought I'm going to add like 2 or 3 minutes to the episode. But here we are. Quarter later. What are we going to throw in? Do they really care? What am I even building? The stopgap, I think. There are no requirements for that. Okay, so in that case, let's pick something that's not terribly heavy, but that does increase stats. This is going to give me general stats slightly higher. Over here, I do need to pay some attention to volume. We're using a 3.3. I can go to a 3.4. Hold on, that changes it negatively. Does it really? Yes. Not acceptable. 3 barely makes a difference. And then the reinforced gearbox is a 3.3. I can go to a 3.4, which will definitely improve it. Okay, let's run with that. Save that. Go back to the design. It might further the man-hour cost. At least power to weight ratio is still good enough. Volume is now more than good enough, so I can add that gunner back in. Which seriously increases firepower hard. Yes. Okay, do it. Add the gunner back in. The sad thing about the whole Enterprise is that I think this tank is just too good now. It's actually too good for what I really need it to do. And it's definitely too expensive. 31,000 man-hours. But at least it will have the required protection values. So for that, I will build one. Or at least I'll design one. But we're going to have to wait until everything else gets fixed. For now, that'll be the episode. Thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. What sort of tanks are you designing? Let me know down below in the comments. And I look forward to seeing you soon for the next episode.